Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm back again with one of the main set legendary creatures from the new Spider-Man set, or through the Omen Pass if you're playing online, that I've taken and turned into a commander deck. And this, as is tomorrow's deck and Thursday's deck, are requested decks for my stream last week, where some of the regulars who come and play with me on MtGO or just talk in the chat have asked me to cover these cards. So we're kicking off today with Iron Spider, Stark Upgrade, or if you're playing on MtGO and Arena, like I will be when you see me streaming, Fizik, Etherium Mechanic. This is a 3-mana, 2/3 with Vigilance, Spider Hero, legendary artifact creature, obviously. And then you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature or vehicle you control. And then you can pay 2 to remove a couple of +1/+1 counters and draw a card. They have to be from among artifacts we control, so you can remove them all from one from each of one. The interesting thing here is that Iron Spider, the Stark upgrade, actually pumps himself. Because he's a legendary artifact creature and we get put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature or vehicle you control, he looks at himself and goes, oh look, I'm an artifact creature, I can make myself bigger, along with anything else we have in play that meets those conditions. So here we go. Here's what today's deck really does look like, and I hope this meets what we were looking for when I was asked for it. So enjoy it. So because we're basically building a colourless deck, and this is coming at bracket 2, as you can see, we've got 2 tutors, the Forge Master and Inventor's Fair, so you know they're coming. But yeah, I'll just point out it's still a bracket 2 deck. We're starting off with 3 Planeswalkers, which I think are really relevant in this deck. The Khan, the Living Legacy, gives us a Power Stone token. It's an artifact with this mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. And since most of the deck is artifacts, that's fine. That gives us a bit of mana ramp. Obviously, we know what the rest of the Khan's stuff, and we can get the -7 off. We're going to be in absolute dreamland, so bear that in mind. Ugin, the Ineffable, means all our coloured spells cost 2 less to cast. Yeah, okay then. Yep, go with that. I can ignore the rest of it. I don't care about the rest of it, to be perfectly honest. The 2 less to cast is fine. 6 mana is a lot, but we can exile the top card of our library face down and look at it. We get a 2/2 colored spirit creature token, and when that token leaves the battlefield, you can put the exiled card into your hand. So it's not the end of the world. But the -3 is quite nice if there's an annoying colored permanent you need to take out. So bear that as mine as well. Finally, Big Boy Ugin's back in. Lightning Bolt anything for 2 -exit to basically get rid of every coloured permanent on the board, and then if you do the -10, gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and then put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Yeah, it's going to be the +2 a lot of the time and the -X most of the time, I would think, but hey, that's what we're here for. Creatures, well, there's 28 of the creatures, and guess what, they're mainly all artifact creatures. Yeah. So, Hangerback Walker and Marketback Walker and Walking Ballista are complete no-brainers in any deck where you're going to be chucking around +1/+1 counters, because who doesn't want Thopters, cards, or removal for damage sitting there, waiting to go whenever you need it to. Copper Gnomes comes in from Urza's Saga of all places, and we can pay 4 to sacrifice this, choose an artifact card in our hand and put that artifact into play, so it gives us a sneaky way of getting some of the bigger stuff here we've got coming up. Apocryphite is in. I don't think this card sees enough play. I do quite like it as a construct. It's a 1/1, that's fine. But when it dies, you get to put it into exile with some time counters on it. And when it comes back in as a 4/4. Yeah, fine by me. 1/1 blocker to start with. It eventually becomes a 4/4 threat, kind of, in Commander. Hedron Crawler and Mannequin are here to give us a little bit of ramp. Mere Retrievers here just to return anything that's been killed off from our graveyard to our hand. That's an artifact. Ornithopter of Paradise gets in the deck, even though it adds coloured mana. It doesn't matter because there's no coloured mana in it, so you might as well have it there as a flying blocker that can tap for mana. Patchwork Automatum is also in. We're going to have a lot of artifact spells come into play, and so if we're going to cast them, we might as well get a benefit from them. This gets big quite quickly, and the Wall 2, even in Commander, does make it a little bit more complicated to deal with. The traditional creature that you want to have when you're playing a basically artifact creature deck, Steel Overseers in to chuck around even more +1/+1 counters. Chief of the Foundry just pumps everything up, including Iron Spider. Just bear that in mind when you play it. Likewise, Foundry Inspector cuts the cost of Iron Spider down. So, yeah, we're going in a good place with this, because if you've got Foundry Inspector in play and maybe Ugin the Ineffable, you're going to have a really good time casting Iron Spider, even if it gets killed off. Junk Diver, when it dies, get another artifact from our graveyard back to our hand. Metal Worker is a no-brainer. On MtGO, this is fairly cheap card to pick up. I think it's like 1 something tickets last time I looked. I know it's very expensive in paper, so if you haven't got one, you may need to think about replacing this with something else. But for the purposes where I'll be playing online, it makes perfect sense for me to have this in this deck to get all that lovely colourless mana. Palladium Mirror is also into even ramp us even more. And then we have a bit of a controversial card, usually Golden Guardian. Pay 2, fight a creature we control. Then, if it dies this turn, return it to the battlefield transformed. Because the transform side of it, the Golden Forge Garrison, is really nice. 2 mana of any one colour to our mana pool, which we don't care. We can add white or blue or whatever we want because everything's colourless. But paying the 4 to get some colourless Golem artifact creature tokens at 4/4 without Defender, yeah, hard to deal with. Jaheira's Familiar cuts the cost of our historic spells down, so artifacts, legendaries, and sagas, so yay. Solemn Sim goes and fetches us at wastes, because obviously we're in colours, so we had to have some basics, and wastes are the way to go. Calm, Legacy Reforged, yeah. At the beginning of your upkeep, add the colourless mana for each artifact we control. Yeah, okay then. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Yeah, that's not really that much of an issue, so we're good. As I already mentioned, Caduceus the Ford marches in, go sacrifice off our 3 weakest artifacts, get one of our big boys that we need. Speaking of which, Soul of New Phyrexia. 5 mana, gives all our permanents indestructible until the end of turn. Really good if you can leave up 5 mana, you know one of your opponents has got something like Blasphemous Act, Chain Reaction, Wrath of God, Damnation, Damn, you know, whatever. Yeah. And even when it goes to the graveyard, you can still pay 5 and exile it from the graveyard to do it for a turn as well. Does make a big difference, and I think people forget about this one. Wormcoil Engine, no brain, obviously in an artifact deck. Same with Cityscape Leveler to take out that annoying permanent, and giving an opponent a Power Stone token, which they're probably not going to be able to use that often. Phyrexian Triniform for all our golems we get when it dies off, and then do the encore bit and bring it back and do it all again. Same with Triplicate Titan, just gives a whole load of nice tokens when this dies as well. But in the meantime, it's a Flying Vigilance trampling 9/9 in the air for 9 mana. Not going to complain. Probably one of the more controversial choices for this deck. It's not a creature, it's not an artifact creature, it's not a vehicle either, but the Capitoline Triad seems to be fairly good to me. Exile any number of, casts 1 less to cast for each historic card in our graveyard. So, any artifacts are in our graveyard, this makes it a lot cheaper to cast. But, and this is the catchy bit, you have to be a little bit careful when you play it. If you exile any number of historic cards from your graveyard with mana value 30 or greater, okay? So, you've got to make sure you can get there. You get an emblem that says, with creatures you control have base power and toughness of 9/9. Base power and toughness. Don't lose any other abilities. So, looking at our familiar up the top here. Yeah. If we've managed to get this off somehow, a 9/9 flyer. Yeah. That's going to cause a few people a few headaches. So, yeah. First time I've played this one from Assassin's Creed in any deck, and I figured, well, if I'm going to try it in a colourless deck, it might as well be in here. So, here we go. And then Metalwork Colossus does actually really help with this, because, that's like a third of what you need to do if you've got the Colossus in the graveyard. Cost X less to cast, where X is the converted mana cost of all our non-creature artifacts we control. Then we can sack 2 artifacts to return this from our graveyard to our hand if we need to. But if it's in the graveyard, you're looking at 30, yeah? So that's 11, 20, 29, and 1 somewhere. There you go, Copper Gnomes, 32. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit excited about this one. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know, but I'm still a little bit excited about it. As from there, sorceries, we've got a few. There are a few non-coloured sorceries, so, we can't use Power Stones for them, shame. But Environmental Sciences goes and fetches us one of our basic lands. We gain a couple of life. Expanded Anatomy chucks around some +1/+1 counters and gives something Vigilance to the end of turn. Introduction to Prophecy lets us do a little bit of scrying and card drawing for 3 mana. And then, because we do want to blow the board up, all his dust is in as well, just to upset everybody. Artifacts-wise, we got a lot. There are some vehicles in here, so they'll be coming up, but we're going to kick off with some ramp with Everflowing Chalice. The Ozolith is in. I've still left it as the Adamantium bonding tanks. I just love this artwork from the secret layer. Yeah, but it's the Ozolith. You know what it does. The Alex is here because, well, yeah, I'm not going to say my usual catchphrase today because I'm trying to avoid saying it, but you know what it does. Expedition map lets us go and find a land. Not a basic land, just a land, and it's worthwhile in this deck. You'll see why when we get there. Soul Ring for the ramp, Voltaic Key, so we can untap any artifacts we need to have untapped. It's quite nice to use this to untap the Iron Spider to chuck even more +1/+1 counters on our creatures. Velwall Stone just gives us any mana, and since we can use it to cast anything, all well and good. The Lightning Greaves gives us a way of protecting the Iron Spider when we have it in play. And then the first vehicle, Mech Titan Core. Yeah, I like this one. I've always liked this one. This is just fun. 5 mana, exile this and 4 other artifact creatures or vehicles we control. We get that lovely 10/10 flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and hasty creature. And then when it dies, we get all the exiled cards back except the core. They come back tapped under our control. That's fine. More ramp with the Mind Stone, more protection with the boots, Thought Vessel for the ramp, Cloud Key to cut the costs of all our other artifacts down. Cultivator's Caravan is the next creature we have in play. 3 mana gives us some ramp, and then when we get around to crewing it for 3, we get to go in for some nice hefty damage. It's also, don't forget, when the vehicles revert back from being vehicles to just standalone artifacts, they're fairly hard to remove outside of something like an overloaded Vandal Blast or something similar. So yeah. Yeah, okay, there is Farewell as well, which has become more popular since it appeared in Final Fantasy Land, but yeah, you know what I mean. Marble Garrison comes in. Whenever it attacks, untap another target artifact or creature we control, which is nice when it's got a crew of 2. Sculpting Steel just lets us copy any other artifact on the battlefield, so that comes in. It's a no-brainer. Clock of Omens lets us untap 2 untapped artifacts that are doing nothing. I'm looking at you, Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. 2 untap another artifact that could be useful. Soul Ring. Mystic Forge lets us look at the top card of our library at any time, and we can cast it if it's an artifact on the colourless non-land card. The Regalia from Final Fantasy. I like this vehicle. I know a lot of people got quite distressed about the Regalia coming into Magic, but at the end of the day, it's Final Fantasy, and this vehicle's always a bit of fun. If we can find a basic land, put it into battlefield tapped, and then the rest on the bottom of our library in a random order, that's fine. Ramp is good for 4 mana and a crew of 1. You should be able to do it quite happily. Thrion Dynamo gives even more ramp. The Unwinding Clock lets us just untap all of our artifacts at the beginning during each other player's untap step. The Weatherlight is one of the vehicles I have included, so when it deals the combat damage, we go and look at the top 5, hopefully find a good historic card put in our hand. Crew of 3 is a little bit challenging, but not the end of the world if you've got a few little things on the go. Forsaken Monument is one of those few little things I was just talking about. Pumps all our colourless creatures by +2/+2. We tap lands for colourless, we get an extra one, or tap permanents, I should say, for colourless mana, we get an additional one. And colourless spell casting gives us 2 life. Knight Paladin comes in for 40k land. I couldn't resist having it here. Crew of 1 has trample, 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. The Eternity Elevator comes in from Edge of Eons as well. No, Eon, well, it was Edge of Eternity, sorry, Edge of Eons, where did that come from? Anyway, 3 mana, tap, 5 mana, tap it for 3, so it costs you 2 technically on the turn you play it. But if you can station it up for 20, which you could do with this deck theoretically, you get to start adding a whole load of mana, which is really nice. The other 40k Titan comes in, and the Reaver Titan to give us some more damage. When it attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. And then Dark Steel Forge to protect all our artifacts, make everything indestructible, and start giving people a few headaches. 1 enchantment in the deck, Echoes of Eternity, because if a triggered ability of a colourless spell you control triggers additional time. But it's the second part I really like. Whenever you cast a colourless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for a copy. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. Yeah, I've had this card out once in one of the other colourless decks I've done, and when it starts going off and is left undisturbed, it really does make a mess of the board really quickly, especially when you've got things like this and this coming into play. Yeah, multiple Dark Steel Forges. Yeah, it's good fun. The lands, as you can imagine, are all colourless. So we've got Adventurers in, Arch of Akansa, Buried Ruins. Literally, Guildless Commons, I would say, is something you do need to pick up because it is basically a tap land that taps for 2 colourless mana. Yes, you have to bounce it, but hey, we'll go with that. Likewise, Morganda Raceway coming in from Ether Drift as well. You should be able to get up to full speed and start tapping this for 2 mana, so like a Soul Ring on a land, basically. Everything else is what you'd expect to see, to be honest. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, cast 2 mana to cast colourless spells, activate only if you control 7 or more lands. That is a bit of a bane, but it does tap for 1 mana in the meantime until you get there, so bear that in mind. Likewise, Temple of the False God will only be here if you've got 5 more lands, so yeah, swings and roundabouts. Tomb of the Spirit Dragons, just a nice way of gaining life, and then because we're playing colourless, Urza's Mind, Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Tower, 20 wastes, and the Void, just so we can do a little bit of scrying on turn 1 with some luck, and that's it. That is my take on our Iron Spider Boy. A little bit longer video today, so I'm going to finish off really quickly. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. If you haven't already, please use your cheers on my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you'd add in, what I've not included that should be here. I'll read them and I'll respond, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. But no, thank you for watching this slightly longer 6 minutes, 12-second video. Take care. Goodbye. 6:15. Bye.